Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this evening's semi-final debate. My name is Darren Gage Brown, and I am the chairman of this debate. The timekeeper is Annabelle Van Raalte. This debate will be judged by a panel of 3 adjudicators, who are Mr. Patrick Maritz, Mr. Simon Atherton, and Ms. Reem Hassanin. The topic for this debate is that marriage counselling should be free. The affirmative team seated to my right is from Pembroke School, and the negative team seated to my left is from Pembroke School. The speaking time for this debate is 5 minutes. A single warning bell will sound 1 minute before the speaking time, and a double bell will sound at the speaking time. Please ensure that your mobile phones are switched off. I declare this debate open and call upon the first affirmative speaker, Ariane Bilal.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that there should be free marriage counselling. We, the affirmative team, believe that this statement is true. We define the topic to mean that couples, whether they are married, plan to be married, or live in a de facto relationship, should, in Australia, have access to relationship counselling services that come at no out-of-pocket expenses and are funded by the taxpayer. This counselling would be provided by professional counsellors. Ladies and gentlemen, when we say married couples, we also include other long-term relationships. We believe that it should be the couples who should not pay, as they experience high emotional stress levels. We are not saying that we should force them to stay together, but to give the marriage a chance to survive. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, a whopping 41% of marriages end up in divorce. Today, as first speaker, I will be discussing how more married couples are likely to use marriage counselling if it were to be free. Being free, it would reduce the anxiety related to who would pay for the marriage counselling. And my last point will be on how divorces can affect individuals dramatically, including the children, which our second speaker will look more closely at. Our second speaker will prove that marriage counselling works and that it is effective. His second point will be on how divorce can be terrifying for any children and how 50% of divorces involve kids. And his third point will be on the advantages of marriage to the economy and how it is better off being married than being single. Our third speaker will rebut and sum up our team case. Now to my first point, how married couples are more likely to do marriage counselling if it were for free. The money itself can be a big problem, as it can amount to very high costs. But any cost can be a deterrent to marriage counselling. If the problem between the couple is a financial issue, who would decide to pay? These people are trying to cope with the stress of having their own jobs and looking after children in many cases. If it were to be free, then more people would definitely sign up for it. Marriage counselling would also resolve many problems before they get out of hand. By making marriage counselling free, we remove the financial barrier that might stop a couple from going to counselling before it's too late. As with any problem, it is best to respond to it early. Now to my second point, how marriage counselling can prevent divorce and the effects of divorce. The famous saying, prevention is better than cure, is very true and has its effects. Financially, divorce is catastrophic for those involved. A lawyer is often needed, and we all know that they are very expensive for each individual. When families break down, there is financial strain as the family usually becomes divided into 2 essentially single-parent households. The family loses all the benefits of having a shared income. This can make it very hard to make ends meet, so that individuals are left poorer. The government ends up spending a lot of welfare money on these families, as well as the children of these divorced parents, as our second speaker will unveil, as many end up troubled in some shape or form. According to a list of life stresses, divorce is the second most stressful thing you could have in your entire life. With marriage counselling, we could avoid all this. The government could in fact be saving money when providing free marriage counselling, as well as preventing a huge downfall in many individuals' lives. According to a recent UK study found that for every £1 spent on relationship education services, there was an £11 return. It highlights the fact that every dollar spent on prevention saves many dollars in services later. By doing marriage counselling, we can avoid a lot of mental health problems that then require services funded by the government's welfare money. This will in fact save more money for the government. In conclusion, it is obvious that marriage guidance counselling should be free, as this will enable all couples to access the help they require to hopefully save their marriages if they are in difficulty. Being free, it will not add to financial pressures many are suffering from. It will alleviate untold emotional suffering both for the children involved and the individuals if separation can be avoided. It will have huge economic benefits outweighing the costs. Thank you.
I now call upon the first negative speaker, Hamish Walker.
Good evening, Mr. and Madam Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for our debate is that marriage counselling should be free. We agree with the majority of the opposition's definition, but to clarify that the term free is central to this debate and that it means there will be no cost incurred by anyone who wishes to engage in marriage counselling. At present, the probability of that occurring is as if the Port will win the grand final. As the Methodist team will firmly believe this statement to be false. Today's first speaker, I'll be focusing on the definition of our debate that the term is euphemism, and there is and never will be any such thing as free marriage counselling, and this will cause our government agencies to diminish other strong industries. Secondly, I will reveal some telling statistics that reveal marriage counselling to be ineffective, and there are better and more tried and tested means of healing a relationship than through counselling. Our second speaker, Nate, will humorously show the internet's part in making marriage counselling redundant, and will further the argument about how marriage counselling is overall ineffective based on more overwhelming statistics. He'll also show that divorce does not need to be seen as a bad thing, because it can end abusive relationships and benefit personal and even legal situations. Our third speaker, Millie, will rebut the Summer team case. The first speaker of the affirmative team has tried to tell you that making marriages free will remove the financial barrier. We the Netherlands team will not refute that counselling does not cost. However, the institution of marriage is, according to an article in the Brisbane Times, much more popular among those with money to spare. The article cited statistics telling us that in 2006, only 53% of women without a university degree were married, relative to the 61% of women with a university degree. Those who need marriage counselling are actually more likely to be able to pay for it. Why can't we use what money has to benefit those who need most? Now to my first point, that marriage counselling can never be made free because it will be too expensive because of government funding. Marriage is a union between two people that generally occurs through mutual consent and understanding. It is a contract undertaken independently independently from government intervention. So why can't we simply leave people to resolve their own issues and use the money in areas that actually matter? According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, in 2010, marriage counselling was reported to have cost Australians approximately $1.2 million. Of the 15 to 20 sessions estimated to the norm, statistics have revealed that only 30% of marriages survive as a result. With a about 60% failure rate, don't you think that the money proposed to be spent on the futile venture could be better spent? Of course it can. The money can be spent in medical industries, which is having the worst flu outbreak in South Australia since 2009, and which requires more beds and expertise, and car industries with the recent holds and closing and resulting unemployment. Not only that, but we can ensure that if we were to spend millions of dollars funding this new scheme, would it be effective? Bill Doherty, director of the Minnesota Couples on the Brink project, has been writing about marriage counselling for years. He reports in numerous statements that 80% of therapists have never undergone training and have failed to have mentoring and internships under studied counsellors. And the statistics back up his claim. Ironically, 25 to 50% of marriages end in divorce after going to counselling. My second point is that there are better alternatives to marriage counselling for families. Counselling is really like a band-aid placed on the cut in order to patch it up. It doesn't actually heal the cut in the first place. How about the simple act of talking to each other? You know, the activity you did when you fell in love with your partner in the first place. How about trusting that the two people who voluntarily chose to fall in love with each other, who entered in a contract of marriage without the help of a relationship supervisor, giving them 20 questions on how much they love each other, can actually use their own ability to reason and work things out. A recent study found that reading research-based articles together as a couple and applying the advice from those articles to your relationship was just as effective as attending a workshop or seminar. And let's not forget the fact that marriage counselling can be extremely confronting for many couples. Men in particular tend to close up and refuse to discuss their problems when forced into the situation. The true art of maintaining a healthy relationship is reconnecting with one's partner. And that is worth far more than any free seminar instructions for quack with no personal connection and often very little qualifications to guide troubled marriages in the right direction. So, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, we in the Negative Team strongly believe that marriage counselling should not be free, and we believe you should too.
I call upon the second affirmative speaker, Oscar Mortier-Small.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that there should be free marriage counselling. Our opposition has raised some issue with our definition, mainly around the word free. We would like to remind you that in Australia we have free healthcare and free education. But of course, they'll say this isn't free because you, ladies and gentlemen, pay for it. However, we still have free education and free healthcare. So really, you can have something free if it's funded by the taxpayers. If they're saying that nothing can be free, they seek to define us out of the debate. So we might as well go home. Our first speaker has already talked to you about how the cost of marriage counselling is deterrent, and that this might already have destroyed countless marriages. How divorce is both financially and economically destroying, and how the government might actually save money, because there'd be less need for welfare. Firstly, I'd like to rebut Hamish's arguments. He's said that people can manage on their own and definitely don't need counselling. However, clearly, with 50 47% of marriages ending in divorce, this doesn't seem to be going very well. Counselling is definitely an effective option, as I will explore later in my speech. He's also said that the money we could spend on counselling would be better spent. We could spend hours talking about things that are better to spend on. However, marriage counselling is definitely an important issue. It affects a great many people, and as we will prove, this has the ability to improve many people's lives for good. They've also said that really what the couples need is just to sit down and talk to each other. And that's basically what counselling is. Marriages often fail because of communication. And this is clearly because they're not actually managing to do that talking, as Hamish has said. So with counselling, you encourage those people to get that talking done and maybe get on to solving their marriage. But now to my first point. This is that we must consider the children that many divorces involve. The Australian Institute of Family Studies that tells us in 2012, 50% of divorces involve children. That's around 50,000 children. So what effect does a divorce have on a child? Definitely not a good one. The child has to see the two people they hold most dear and closest to them decide that they don't want to be together anymore. As you can imagine, this has a pretty nasty effect on the child, most notably in the form of lower self-esteem and higher stress. A 2011 study showed that by the University of Wisconsin found that children of divorced parents often fall behind their classmates in studies, social skills, and are more likely to suffer anxiety, stress, and low self-esteem. These are all problems that affect a person deeply and will probably continue for their entire life. In 1990, the University of California found that children of divorce run a 35% greater risk of developing health problems, and concluded that yes, this was due to elevated stress. And finally, the University of Utah in 2005 released a study showing that children of divorce are more likely to divorce as adults themselves. Despite aspiring to stable relationships, children of divorce are more likely to marry as teens, as well as marry someone who comes from a divorced family as well. This research suggests that couples which have one spouse which have divorced parents may be more than twice as likely to divorce. And if both partners come from divorced families, then they're more than 3 times more likely to divorce themselves. So divorce breeds divorce. Ladies and gentlemen, these terrible statistics that I've mentioned can be avoided. There'll be no doubt that marriage counselling will improve this, as I'm about to explain. Hamish has already come up with some good statistics as to why marriage counselling isn't so great. And I'm about to do the opposite. And this proves one thing. You can prove anything with statistics. So here they are. A 2012 study of family therapy showed that couples therapy positively impacts 70% of couples receiving treatment. And the American Association of Marriage found that 97% said they got the help they needed. So really, marriage counselling helps some people and sometimes it doesn't. I'd like to say that the overwhelming majority is on the better side, but I'm sure, well, it is. Marriage counselling, among other things, helps improve communication between spouses. As I've said, this is probably why the marriage fails in the first place. Marriage counselling can undoubtedly help prevent a whole range of problems that we've already mentioned. To illustrate this, the federal government is starting a 12-month trial of $200 marriage counselling vouchers. I'm not kidding. This is going to cost them around $20 million. I'd certainly hope, ladies and gentlemen, that the government would not be doing something like that lightly. Clearly, marriage counselling is successful, or at least they think so. Clearly, marriage counselling is successful. I'd finally like to introduce some added benefits that we can achieve using free counselling. A stable family is more likely to help elderly relatives. With divorce, people must return to work because of financial stresses mentioned by our first speaker. And this often makes them unable to care for their relations. Also, stable marriages are good for the economy because these couples are known to invest and save for the future. So tonight, I hope that I've proven to you that marriage counselling is effective, and the effects of divorce on children are catastrophic. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the opportunity to change a great many people's lives for the better, to alleviate the suffering of many people, as they would otherwise have gone through one of the most terrible and stressful times in their lives. There can be no doubt there should be free marriage counselling.
I call upon the second native speaker, Nate Kamada.
Rita Rutner once said on stage, "I think men who have a pierced ear are better prepared for marriage. They've experienced pain and bought jewellery." And then Nishan Hussain went further and added, "A husband is living proof that a wife can take a joke." Good evening, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nate, and the topic for tonight's debate is that marriage counselling should be free. We, the negative team, will make it clear to you that this statement is false. You can see the extent of wisdom that can be obtained by a simple Google search on the internet from my opening quotes. Advice such as this is already provided free, i.e. if you have a computer, one that is compatible with the internet, an ISP and an account not default with an ISP and a phone line, so there is no need to make it free. It is actually quite amazing how many use the internet for advice on all manners of things. Health, relationships being major hits, sources close to internet trafficking monitor us. If you want to lose weight, have a headache that you can't toss, or even need a feel-good love story, go to the internet. Relationship counselling, marriage proposals, go to the internet. But on a more serious note, I would like to rebut some of the propositions made by the affirmative team, and then I will address two other points. Mr. Parler, first speaker of the affirmative team, has imprudently stated that marriage counselling prevents divorce. This is disproved by statistics cited by our first speaker, Hamish, and I will develop further into these in my second point. A statistic cited in The Guardian, and it is clear that marriage counselling is not improving anything. Divorce rates have actually been on the way down, according to the Brisbane Times, without the need for free marriage counselling. Mr. Mortier Spall, the second affirmative speaker, has tried to make the case that free marriage counselling would ensure sounder marriages between parents and, by extension, happier children. I must once more remind the affirmative team that divorce is not prevented by free marriage counselling. Divorce is sometimes the best option for children as well as parents. Studies have shown that children are on the whole able to cope overwhelmingly well with divorced parents. But I will elaborate this in my second point. Today I will address 2 points: how marriage counselling is ineffective, and also how divorce can be beneficial to the majority. First, marriage counselling is generally ineffective. So why invest in it to make it free? In addition to what Mr. Walker has told you, and as Professor John Gottman points out, couples wait an average of 6 years of being unhappy with their relationship before getting help. The success rate of counselling then is poor and will undoubtedly ever get better, as it is too late. 25 to 50% of counselled marriages end in divorce. It seems better to leave people to their own devices rather than give them free advice and counselling to improve their prospects of failure. And anyway, secondly, divorce is a better solution than marriage counselling to those who have experienced abusive relationships, so providing pre-counselling is simply obtuse. A 2009 study by the Australian Institute of Family Studies found that abusive behaviours were the main reason why 24.3% of women for leaving a marriage. A range of the studies indicate a substantial majority of the divorced population have no regrets. For example, a Gallup poll of 1989 found the overwhelming majority, 82%, believed that divorce was the right decision for them and reject the idea that their lives would have been better if their marriage had stayed intact. The groundbreaking studies of E. Mathis Hetherington, a pioneer in developmental psychology, correctly observe that divorce is a legitimate decision if children in marriages with parents who are contemptuous of each other, not even with overt conflict, but just sneering and subtle put-downs that erode the partner's self-esteem, that is very bad for kids. She has also found that even though they may face economic hardship, many women are enhanced after divorce and develop competencies that they may not have otherwise. It is quite obvious that after all these studies, polls and statistics, ladies and gentlemen, it is quite obvious that marriage counselling comes too late and therefore it does not need to be free. And finally, let's not forget the important economic contribution that divorce makes to the legal profession. Do we want law graduate numbers to halve because marriages are prevented from failure? Private school enrolments, for example at the negative team school, will shatter as lawyers pull their kids out. So in conclusion, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, we really need a reality check here. Free marriage counselling is just not on. It is an expensive route that does not effectively attack the perceived problem of failing relationships in our society.
I call upon the third affirmative speaker, Sam Stratton-Smith.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The topic for tonight's debate is that there should be free marriage counselling in Australia. Before I begin my speech, I would like to point out some problems with our learned friend's case. They have stated numerous times that marriage counselling is ineffective. I would like to share with you a 2006 study that said that 71% of couples therapy was effective. Oscar has also given you numerous statistics on how effective marriage counselling is. I really do not think that there is a lot more to be said. Our esteemed colleague Nate has also said that divorce can be a good thing. I would like to disagree. Divorces tear families apart, leaving children in the middle not knowing what to do. He's also said that marriage counselling brings up the issues in a relationship such as abuse and poor communication. But I would like to say that marriage counselling helps to solve them. He's also said that most couples wait 6 years before getting help. Don't you think that being free would make it more attractive and therefore change that? People would get help as soon as possible. Furthermore, I would like to point out that the internet is free, which is why people like it so much. So don't you think that if marriage counselling was free, it would be far more attractive? This debate raises the question, what is the benefit of free marriage counselling? If a marriage can be saved, then it is worth trying. I'm sure that if you asked any young child, would you like your parents to stay together, the answer in almost every case would be yes. Those children are reason enough for this. And let's be clear, no one is talking about forcing any marriages to stay together. Of course, there are some cases where a marriage should end, but what we're talking about is making the service available for those who need it, and allowing the marriage a chance to survive. Ladies and gentlemen, it is simply the right thing to do. I would now like to sum up my team's argument. Our first speaker, Ariane, has discussed with you the fact that if marriage counselling was free, couples would be far more likely to use it. It is simple economics. When the cost of anything decreases, the demand increases, other things being equal. This is clearly illustrated in queues at emergency departments and when people spend extended periods of time searching for a free parking space. He then spoke to you about how marriage can prevent a difficult divorce. Divorces are ranked the second most stressful thing a person can experience. The ubiquitous proverbial saying, prevention is better than a cure, is particularly relevant. Our second speaker, Oscar, began by saying that not only is divorce a difficult time for the parents, it is equally difficult for the children. Watching two of their closest relations tear apart can be very destructive for a child, leading to stress and numerous other difficulties. He then continued by outlining the clear effectiveness of marriage counselling. Marriage counselling can help raise and solve some issues and improve communication across the board. He finished by sharing with you the support the government is showing for free marriage counselling, with their plan to give all newlyweds a $200 voucher for marriage counselling. He also illustrated some of the other benefits of marriage. Sometimes it can just be a rough patch. The grass will always appear greener on the other side. Sometimes all it needs is a gentle reminder or a little help to let us know that maybe it isn't. For most people, marriage is a highly significant life event, with gifts, dressing up, and a lot of celebration. Family will often come from across the globe to celebrate it. We then celebrate it year after year with an anniversary. There must be a reason for all of this. It is because as a society, we value this. Why go to all these lengths when we get married if we don't value it enough to invest in its preservation? In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, there without a doubt should be free marriage counselling. Thank you.
I call upon the third negative speaker, Millie Wheaton.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, timekeeper, ladies and gentlemen. As the third speaker for the negative side of this debate, I would first and foremost like to expose some falsehoods present in the opposition's case. The first affirmative speaker told you that couples would be more likely to attend marriage counselling if it were free. While this is fair, I would like to refer to a quote by Peter Doherty, a figure already cited by our first speaker. He referred to going to a counsellor's office as akin to going to see a doctor who had skipped orthopaedic school. Encouraging marriage counselling is not the first step I would take towards a better society. In addition, couples are often tentative about A, admitting they have a problem in the first place, and B, sharing that problem with others. He also referred to divorce as the second most stressful thing one might face. I wonder what the first was. Living with an abusive partner, perhaps? Besides, the fact that divorce isn't even prevented by marriage counselling, going through a stressful ordeal is usually to achieve a worthwhile end. To back this up, the poll cited by our second speaker proved that over 80% of people who had been divorced thought that their divorce was worthwhile, and they rejected the idea that they would have been happier had their marriage remained intact. The second affirmative speaker stated imprudently that children suffer mental problems due to divorce and even mirror this habit themselves. The opposition's whole argument is based around the conception that marriage counselling brings divorce down. Our second speaker has cited a study which proves the outstanding recovery of children after divorce. The habit of divorcing themselves may simply be due to the further insight they have into the dangers of remaining in a toxic relationship. He also told you that anything can be proved with statistics. This is certainly true when you source your statistics from people and organisations who clearly have agendas regarding the popularity of marriage counselling. The third affirmative speaker attempted to imply that statistics raised by their second speaker are more veritable than those raised by our first two speakers, while the second speaker explicitly stated that you can prove anything with statistics. He then told you that the appeal of the internet was in the lack of fees. The internet is not free, and our second speaker already told you that the internet replaces counselling with the numerous thousands, in fact, of opinions that you can gain with a simple click of a mouse. He told you that we should do the same to marriage counselling, and this is untrue due to what I have previously said. He also told you that anniversaries and other celebrations are evidence of how we celebrate marriages. What we as the negative team think is that marriage celebrations and telling you that you should keep going with your marriage are simply a ruse created by people who want the marriage to last longer and therefore avoid any financial difficulties after, which are really for the best. Our team has by now presented to you the entirety of our case against free marriage counselling. Let me finally readdress the primary points raised by the first two negative speakers. Our first speaker, Hamish, explored my 2 points. His first was that truly free marriage counselling is a myth. Someone always pays, and in this case, that would be the citizens of Australia. More importantly, the generous sums of money which would be squandered on free counselling for couples are needed more than ever in other areas of unquestionable importance. He then dismissed the hypothetical benefit of government subsidy in this area by citing statistics which clearly illustrate the impotent nature of marriage counselling in itself. Our second speaker, Nate, explained to you that not only is marriage counselling ineffective, as our first speaker told you, it is often sought too late. He ended his speech by reasoning that it is sometimes better for everyone to leave a relationship which clearly isn't realising its goals. Ladies and gentlemen, free marriage counselling, despite its promising name, is costly. It doesn't work. And finally, it encourages the perpetuation of something infinitely more harmful than divorce, a bad marriage. Thank you.
Please wait while the adjudicators finalise the results. invite a representative of the adjudication panel to come forward and announce the result.
Thank you. I'm just going to stand off to the side here, just so I can be out of shot of the camera. Thanks very much to everyone for turning up tonight. It's lovely to see so many people for this semi-final debate. It's a little bit different tonight in that we don't provide feedback on individual speakers or reasons for the overall decision, because we've obviously gone through our own adjudications. It's basically just to let you know how it works back there. We each have our own decision to make, and then it's basically it's either going to be a unanimous decision or it's going to be a 2-1 either way. So obviously, congratulations to everyone for making it through this far. The grand finals will be at Parliament House on the 20th of September, and it will be obviously one of the teams that goes through as a result of tonight. There aren't too many other comments to make other than to award the debate really, and it was a split decision. It was very close, looking at the adjudication sheets, and in the end it was, as I said, split decision to the negative. Congratulations. And there are some. I have a couple of sheets here which give you some details about the grand finals. And I think I've only got a couple, but I'm sure that James has some of the information desk. And the only other thing to do is to award or to announce the award for one speaker for this evening, and it was decided that would be Nate. Congratulations. So I'll just give you these so that you can see what they look like. That's the other one. That one there.
Thank you.
So if you can each pick up another one out of the desk. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
I call upon a member of the runner-up team to give a vote of thanks.
Right, well, thank you everyone. Thank you to our adjudicators, to the audience, and to our chairperson and timekeeper, and Hamish for a very strong argument, Nate for a priceless opening. It's a very strong rebuttal. So once again, thank you everyone for coming out. Thanks.
I call upon a member of the winning team to second that vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming this evening. It was a fantastic debate. I'd strongly like to thank our coach, Miss Matheson, for bringing us this far, both our teams. Fantastic support all the way. Our parents have done remarkably for us. And of course the opposition, timekeeper, chairperson and panel 3 adjudicators. There is a certain matter that I would like to discuss, just a small. I must remind the lawyer parents of the people in the affirmative team, this was only a debate. So to withdraw those children from Pembroke, that's not a good idea.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your attendance. I now declare this debate closed.